Hello and welcome to Daily Records. I am Tommy Burton and we are continuing July and our walk through the Beatles catalog, and we're going to be talking about the Beatles all month long. But we're going to go ahead and get the catalog out of the way, the original British albums, and we're going to go on with the next one. This is the fourth album after our detour yesterday. Released on December 4th, 1964, Beatles For Sale. Again, this was their fourth album, and some of you know a lot of this material from the Capitol Records release, Beatles 65, that was released in America. But this was a little bit of another advancement for the Beatles. As I mentioned, for Hard Day's Night's more of a sort of a straight-ahead sort of pop rock album. This album started to wear the influences of folk music, and particularly Bob Dylan, the primary songwriters of Lennon, McCartney, and George Harrison, all were heavily influenced by Bob Dylan at this point. And a lot of people note that the cover of the band looks a little bit weary by this point in late 1964. Beatlemania was starting to take a toll a little bit. And also, aside from the advancements in the songwriting, they kind of went back to mining some of the cover material that kind of made up the earlier records. Now, they started recording this in August of 64, right after Hard Day's Night was released. And they pretty much, from August to September, recorded most of the album. They had come back from the United States doing a tour, and they did a lot of the production kind of on days off from UK performances. So a lot of songwriting was being done in the studio and kind of on the fly. Now they were beginning to become a little more advanced in their recording techniques. They began to use the studio as another instrument, which is one of the things the Beatles were known for. In addition to being great songwriters, they used were starting to use more sort of studio tricks. For example, the song 8 Days a Week had a fade in. Most songs faded out. So, going through some of the tracks here, particularly the original compositions, the song No Reply, this was sort of a little bit of a push forward for John Lennon. Again, he's wearing some of the Dylan influence. The acoustic guitar drives the track. But he talks about going to see a girl who won't answer. And so it's really interesting. And like I said, the guitar and piano interplay in particular really drive this song. And another track, again, I'm a Loser. This is where you really begin to hear Dylan's influence. And the song takes a little bit more of a serious tone. Up to this point, Lennon McCartney was focused on love lyrics and boy-girl type relationship things. And this is an obvious nod to Dylan at this point. You can definitely tell, particularly when John Lennon uses the word friend, which Dylan does on Blowin' in the Wind. And so, it's a tribute. Babies in Black, another sort of sad, resentful type song, just like the previous two. So you definitely know there's a little bit of a darker tone taken here. Now, I want to say for a second, I'll Follow the Sun is a Paul McCartney song. And I've always thought, and you guys can comment down below on this, I've always thought that I'll Follow the Sun was one of the best Buddy Holly songs that he never wrote. It's definitely, to me, I know Buddy Holly was a huge influence on the Beatles, but I think I'll Follow the Sun is the Beatles, and particularly Paul McCartney, really striving to grab that Buddy Holly type sound and song. I can hear Buddy Holly singing a song like that. Of course, 8 Days a Week, great pop song. Every Little Thing, I Don't Want to Spoil the Party. All of these originals, What You're Doing. Now, again, there were cover versions. They do a wonderful version of Buddy Holly's song Words of Love. A couple of Carl Perkins songs, Everybody's Trying to Be My Baby, and Ringo singing Honey Don't. The Chuck Berry rock and roll music still, Chuck loomed large over the Beatles, particularly in the early period. Now, one of the weaker covers, and is sort of a source of controversy, so I'll address it since we're talking about this album, Mr. Moonlight. I can see the arguments for and against it. I've always enjoyed Lennon's sort of vocal on it, particularly the intro, just because you can hear him really going for it. But it really is a cheesy song. The organ is really, loungy sounding. So I can go both ways with it. I don't absolutely loathe the track, but I can respect the people that do. So, as an album, it is a step back from the height of Hard Day's Night, but it's a pleasant album. But it's really a transitional album, at least to me, where the Beatles are starting to move into that sort of what I call mid-period, and so they're stepping away from the early sort of live energy and that sort of thing, and they're moving into more sort of introspective songwriting. But today's Daily Record, Beatles For Sale, the original British album as released in England. So like, comment, subscribe, share. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter. It's TommyBurton75. You know the drill. In the meantime, I will see you all again tomorrow with another Daily Record.